Now, at this point, I'd kind of like to put my personal faith story on hold for just a little bit and talk to you about prodigals in general, some of the things that I think we need to discuss about them. For example, what is going through our minds when we rant and rave at you? What is that about? Are we trying to hurt you? Is it personal? And also, I want to suggest some things that might come from you as a parent or as a church that might improve the connections that we have with our prodigals today. And I will eventually give you my thoughts on that. Now, when I first put this talk together, I wanted to give you more than just my personal perspective. So I went and read, all the Christian contemporary literature on prodigals and what the thoughts are about them. And there are lots and lots of books out there. And a lot of them are spending time trying to figure out why they're leaving now in numbers that we've not seen before. And I'll get to that at the end of this talk. But I was reading a lot of personal stories, and I read this one book that made me uncomfortable. Now, sometimes when I'm reading a book that makes me uncomfortable, I can't quite articulate it in the beginning why it makes me uncomfortable, but I knew right away what it was about this book that bugged me. So I was reading this. Now, when you're reading a book, what you want is for the author in the initial pages to lay out why you should care what they have to say. That's what you need in the beginning of the book. So on a book about a prodigal, what you're hoping you'll find is the book will say, we had a prodigal. Here's the process that we went through. Here's what we did right. Here's what we did wrong. And here's a happy ending. Our prodigal has come home. That's what you hope for. That would be a useful book. But that is not what I got in this one particular book. For the first half of this book, these authors shared something along these lines. We've never had a prodigal. Not one, not one. We've had lots and lots of teenagers, and they've all just been so blessedly wonderful. I mean, I'm telling you, their teenagers were just delightful. And none of them ever rebelled. And, even to this day, we are all just the best of friends. Now, I didn't put the book down at that point. Part of me wanted to. Part of me began to warm up my shredder. But nonetheless, I thought, okay, if they've never ever had a prodigal, the truth is maybe they know something I don't know. That's worth continuing. So I thought, I have 3 children, and I've not yet had a child who has left the faith. But I do have a child who went through a very powerful period of rebellion. In fact, I would say he and I have gone head to head pretty much from the womb forward. That would be the best description of our life. He was the most rambunctious child, even in the womb. And in fact, the only reason I think I won that was because, it was a confined space and I owned it. Otherwise, although in recent years I started to reflect, he was an emergency C-section. So we may have to really rethink who won that battle. I don't know. But anyway, so back to this book. I guess I would like to know what these parents did such that they never had a rebellious child. And did it involve medication? No, sorry, I'm leaving that off. Okay, so I kept reading. And about halfway through the book of hearing ad nauseum about how wonderful their children were, I finally found it. The reason, in their opinion, that teens become rebellious and think about leaving the faith is, are you ready? Bad parenting. Oh, they were so grieved to share that with us, but there it is, the truth hurts. Okay, I'm still reading, but my shredder is now fully locked and loaded, and I'm thinking, I can accept the people who've never had a rebellious child might know something I don't. I can accept that. I can even accept that it might be my fault. Because, let's be fair, as parents, we tend to think everything's our fault anyway. I mean, we kind of live in guilt land, right? We go there maybe when we shouldn't. So I thought I'm going to at least read on and find out what it is these authors think I have done wrong and take a look at that. And then what followed in this particular book is some of what I, very unkindly probably, have decided was some of the most useless drivel that I could have imagined. Platitudes. In fact, it defines the word platitude for me. Here was the deep and highly useful advice I was given. Keep the channels of communication open with your child. I'm thinking $22.95 I paid for that piece of advice. That's great. Yeah, I've been putting deadbolts on all the locks hoping they wouldn't find me, and I don't do that anymore. Hallelujah. Anyway, here was another one. Don't hold the leash too tightly. You know what's coming. But don't hold it too loosely either. Oh, so glad that's cleared up. And here was my favorite one. Encourage your child. Wow, and I had been duct taping them to the wall, hoping they wouldn't find me. I was like, come on. I was so exasperated by not only their advice, but by the examples of parenting they gave. They gave parenting examples that were so far off the charts bad that anyone with a pulse could tell you there was going to be trouble. It was obvious. But what I needed to know was, what if I have encouraged my child? What if I did bring him up in the faith and in the church? What if I actually lived what I preached? What if I made it clear to him that I loved him more than life itself? And what if he still walked away? Because that's what I did to my parents. And if in their pain over my decisions they had picked up this book, it would have been awful. I'm glad it hadn't been written at the time. So I eventually, after my journey away from the faith of my parents, and eventually after many, many long years into a saving faith with Jesus, I think I learned a few things that might be worth sharing to parents of prodigals and to pastors who minister to parents of prodigals. And so some of the things I'm sharing today, I think you'll find will go into those two different areas.